So we're going to be taking a look at different scenarios and using the online calculators to compare different types of loans. I'm going to be going through two scenarios, and I'm going to use two different loan calculators, one from the Royal Bank and the other one from Coast Capital. So just to let you know that there's variety, and you can choose whichever loan calculator you feel most comfortable with. If you would like to review how to do that, you're going to need to go back to the previous skill, and there will be instructions there on how to use each of the specific loan calculators. So let's take a look at a couple of scenarios and analyze and use the online calculators to help us answer what is the best option for Laura. Laura wants to refurnish her living room, and she's picked out furniture, and it costs $6,200. She has saved $1,000 but needs to borrow the rest. So she wants to keep the monthly payments as low as possible. And she's got two options: a 2-year term at 7.2% or a 3-year term at 6.6%. And what option should she choose, and what are the disadvantages of her choice? So let's take a look at a little bit of the vocabulary before we use the calculator. We want to know how much she how much she's going to borrow. And because she has the cost of the furniture is $6,200, and she has $1,000 already saved, she's only going to be borrowing $5,200. So this is the amount she's going to borrow. And she's going to make monthly payments. That's another word to be careful of when you start using the calculators. 2-year term means it's going to be 2 years to pay back. The term, remember, is the length of the loan. So option A has a shorter loan period. Option B is a 1 year extra, but the interest rate is different. So let's go ahead and actually now use the calculators. So I've used the Coast Capital investment link to compare the two payments, and we're going to take a look at what is best for Laura. So remember, Laura wants to keep the payments as low as possible. So the loan payment here, the monthly payment as low as possible. So weekly payment in this case, or the monthly payment, sorry. The loan payment here, she's going to be spending $233.29. That's for option A. So this one is option A. Because how do I know it's A? Because it's 2 years and 7.2%. And here's option B, and she's only spending $159.61. So what option should she choose? B. But with every choice, you've got to take the advantages and disadvantages. She's going to be making lower payments, that's right, but what are the disadvantages of this choice? So one disadvantage is that she's going to spend more years spent paying it back, and the other one is that the total amount she pays here compared to here is just a little bit higher. So in B, it's what, 5,700, and the other one is 5,000, approximately 600. I'm just using approximation skills here. So this one is approximately 5,600. And here, if we round down a little bit, it's 5,700 approximately. So she's going to spend an extra $100 with choice B. And so that is one of the disadvantages. So let's take a look at another example. Ben wants to set up his own DJ business, and he has done the research and knows he needs to borrow about $6,200 to buy equipment and get started. He wants to keep the total cost down as much as possible. So there's two options to consider. One is 4-year amortization at 7.8%, and the other one a 5-year amortization at 6.3%. So before we go, this is how much he wants to borrow or needs to borrow. He hasn't got any money to put down, so that's the full amount. Remember, amortization is the same as term or payment length. Just a reminder of what that vocabulary means. These percentages are a year. So 7.8% a year or 6.3% a year. What option should he choose? And what should his payment frequency be? And what are the disadvantages of this choice? So let's now go to the online calculators and make a comparison of these two and play a little bit around with the payment frequency. So let's take a look at these two examples side by side. The one on the left here is option A. We can see that it's 7.8%, and in this case I've used the Royal Bank loan calculator just to show you how they work differently. The loan payment frequency is 4 years, and I've chosen to begin with a loan payment frequency of a monthly. And then here on the other side is option B. And if he wants to keep the total cost down, so he doesn't really care very much about what the monthly cost is, but the total cost, we have to concentrate on how much interest is being paid. Because in both cases, he's paying $6,200 for the equipment, but then this is how much he is charged by the bank for borrowing. And they're actually quite close. There's only a couple of dollars difference, so you could argue that you could go one way or the other. But B, if you really want to be technical, he wants to keep the cost down as low as possible, this is the one to go with. $1,037. It's a bit lower, a couple of bucks cheaper. Not much, but a couple of bucks. So A is the choice that he should make. And we're going to talk about payment frequency in a second. The second part is what are the disadvantages of the choice. I just want to point out what the monthly difference is. So he's paying a little bit more every month here for portion A, and it's a little bit higher because he's only doing it for 4 years compared to the 5 years here. So the disadvantage is that his monthly payments will be a smidgen higher. Payments will be what, $150 to $120, about $30 more. The disadvantage is that well, I guess that's the only disadvantage, so that he's paying higher monthly rate. So let's take another look at this Royal Bank calculator and change the loan payment frequency. So I'm going to run through the same information we have for that problem. So it's a borrowing of $6,200. And the interest rate was 7.8%, and it was a loan, and the repayment period was 4 years. And now I'm going to start with monthly, and we know what that's going to be based on what we had looked at in the last slide. But what I want to do now is want you to watch what happens to both the monthly and the total interest as we change the loan payment frequency. So we're going to go, instead of monthly, we're going to go more often, so weekly, and run the numbers again. And notice that the weekly fixed loan it looks like it's really cheap. It's $34.72. That's because you're paying every week, and the total interest costs are very, very close. So making a change from monthly to weekly on loans of this size makes very little difference, except that you're paying a smaller amount every week instead of a larger amount once a month. So finally, I want to go over one example with you that uses the Scotiabank loan calculator. Meg wants to borrow $14,000 for a new RV and is offered 3.2% interest on a 5-year term. How much will the RV cost her? So let's take a look at a couple of things first. First of all, this should have a dollar sign here. and wants to borrow $14,000. I've run it through the calculator and noticed that it's $14,000. The interest rate is 2%, and she's going to borrow it for 5 years. And the results are summarized in this little paragraph down here. What it doesn't tell you is how much interest that Meg is going to have to pay. It tells you the monthly payment, but in contrast to some of the calculators we've used before, it doesn't tell you how much interest she's paying. And because the RV is going to cost $14,000 plus the interest, we have to somehow figure that out. So how much is she going to pay? She's going to be paying $252.81 a month, and she's going to be doing that for 5 years. So she's going to pay it 12 times a year, because there's 12 months a year, for 5 years. So that's how much she's actually paying, and that works out to be $15,168.60. So that is how much the RV is going to cost her. So if you are not told what the interest payments are, then you can figure that out by using the information based on the monthly payments and how long she's going to be paying. So that means for the interest, how much interest she's being charged is the amount that she finally pays minus what the RV cost, or how much she borrowed in the first place. So that would be $1,168.60. That's how much interest she's paid to the bank.